For all I know, the only one. You could get your kid Bible lessons and get him or her out of there before they got to the incomprehensible adult Bible lessons delivered later in church. It was kind of a come one, come all place with, I now see, a decided fundamentalist flair and about a 50% casualty rate on preachers who got involved with other people's lives or teenagers. My parents weren't I don't know what was the matter with that church. They still do that. My parents weren't avid churchgoers, but they were more than willing to get rid of us for a couple of hours on any given Sunday. And my mother had a good enough voice to be a standout in the choir on special occasions. They always gave us the choice whether or not to attend, but for many of my early years, I was consistent. In fact, between age 5 and 6, my shiny face showed up exactly 52 times. I wanted the prize, the mysterious, oft alluded to, never described reward for perfect attendance. It was very special, they said. You couldn't buy it in stores, they said. Be the first and only kid on your block to have one, they said. Only those who showed up every Sunday, for better or worse, in green slime, nose-running, projectile vomiting queasiness and in health, would walk away with a mysterious, coveted prize. Out of probably 25 or 30 kids, 3 of us made it. On Sunday of that 52nd week, we stayed after Sunday school for grown-up church to be celebrated and embraced for righteous tenacity before the entire congregation. The Reverend Pardee told the rapt parishioners that from among us might spring the next Billy Graham. The Perfect Attendance Award was laid in soft cotton inside a small, white, expensive-looking box. Inside, mounted on a brown plastic base, were thick greenish-white plastic letters reading, "Jesus Saves." I had hoped for one of those little plastic frogmen you could send away for from Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. He filled a little compartment on his foot with baking soda, and when the baking soda soaked up the water, he would actually dive deep into your bathtub. Jesus Saves. My disappointment was brief. The Reverend Pardee instructed the 3 of us to hold our trophies high for the rest of the congregation to see that made the entire 52 weeks worth it. These children, these lambs of God, will never be without this message, he said. Spring or winter, summer or fall, his intensity built. Sickness and health, we fidgeted now, swaying from foot to foot. And then he sprung the good news, pointing at a church deacon to douse the lights. Day or night. There was a slight gasp from the audience, and we looked up. Jesus saves, Jesus saves, Jesus saves was glowing in the dark. I couldn't wait to get it home, flashing it briefly to my parents and brother on my lightning trip from the front door to the downstairs bedroom I shared with John. I pulled the curtain on the one high small window and turned out the lights. The dim greenish glow of that same plastic they used to make glow-in-the-dark vampire teeth said it all. Jesus saves. My brother came down to tell me Sunday breakfast was ready. Sunday morning meant link sausage and waffles, my favorite. I said I wasn't hungry. How come you're sitting in the dark? I nodded toward the shelf from which glowed the message of the lifeguard Jesus. You gonna sit here all day and look at that thing? Yeah, you can come down too if you want. We could put on our pajamas. He picked it up to take a closer look, and I yelled and jumped up, snatching it from his grasp and knocking it to the hardwood floor. I snatched it back up. Esus Saves. The J back from the floor. Stunned, I stepped into my imaginary telephone booth, whipped off my imaginary glasses and suit jackets, and out stepped Ball Baby. 52 weeks of coloring the bearded, robed men and veiled women of Nazareth. 52 weeks of memorizing the names of the disciples, never understanding whether or not they were the same guys as the apostles. 52 weeks singing, Jesus loves me, this I know. There was much wailing and gnashing of teeth. I'm telling, I convulsed, you're really in trouble now. I didn't mean to break it, he said. You're supposed to keep your hands off my stuff. You never let me touch your stuff. He looked around the room. You can touch anything you want. No, sir, too late. He reached into his toy box. Here, he said, you can bring some Tinker Toys. Those Tinker Toys belong to both of us. Plus, I was not about to even this up so easily. I had been wronged in a serious and spiritual way. No, sir, I'm not breaking anything, I'm telling. I'm not the one who broke it, he said. I just picked it up to look at it. You're the one who grabbed it out of my hand. What a stingy guts anyway. God probably had you break it because you're stingy guts. I shook my head hard. You're not supposed to put your hands on my stuff. Stingy guts, I'm telling. Did you know Jesus had a big brother? No, sir, Jesus did not have a big brother, and even if he did, I bet he made him keep his hands off his stuff. I'm I'm not kidding. He had a big brother. That's where he got most of his big ideas. I didn't know what his name was. Don't even try it, John. I've been going to church for 52 weeks straight. And there's not been one mention of Jesus' big brother. Nobody knows about him, at least not very many people, but he was actually smarter than Jesus. He wrote some of the stuff in the Bible for him. Okay, if you're so smart, what was his name? I'm not telling, he said. You wouldn't believe me anyway. He picked up the Tinker Toys you'd give me a break and put them back in the toy box. Man, I had one short attention span. I might believe you. What was his name? Gotta promise you'll believe me. Even this early in life, this many years before I would be brutally gunned down with a Daisy Red Ryder BB gun, this should have had a familiar ring, but if this was true, I could take it back and be the smartest kid in my Sunday school class. Okay, I said reluctantly, I promise, I'll believe you. Now, what was his name? Esus, and you're the only kid who has a glow in the dark. Jesus had a big brother named Jesus? He did not. You're a liar. You promised you believe me. That's no fair, I said. There's nobody named Jesus. Cross my heart, my brother said. But he wasn't famous like Jesus, even though he was smarter. One of his eyes was poked out, I think. That's why nobody talks about him. He wasn't famous. I'm still telling. I know, he said, but if you do, they'll take your Jesus saves away from you. You're probably the only kid in the world who has a sign about it. Too bad you have to give it away. How come I have to give it away? I told you, dummy, nobody knows about it. When you tell them I broke it, they're going to take it away. Nobody's supposed to know about Esus, even though he has the best ideas. In order to maintain its glow, the plastic trinket needed to be held up to the light intermittently. So I plucked it off the shelf again and reached as high as I could toward the bull now burning in the middle of the ceiling. My brother, relieved that he may have just avoided the need to explain to my parents why he was touching my stuff, took it gingerly from me and held the difference between our heights closer. I don't know why I always felt the need to educate my friends when I learned some new bit of information most of the rest of the world didn't know, such as the secret existence of Jesus' older, smarter brothers. But I did, and ended up on the wooden bench outside Mr. Motz's Sunday school classroom the very next Sunday for what would become the first in a long string of blasphemous statements. John had his internal distant early warning system turned on high that morning, with which he intercepted me coming into the house, my lower lip quivering like an egg beater, ready to tell my parents how I'd been wrongly banished from my Sunday school classroom. John reminded me that if I told them I got put out of the room, I'd also have to tell them why, which would mark the last day of my special relationship with Esus. That night, before I got under the covers, I knelt next to my bed and prayed to Esus that Lot would not remember to tell my parents about our Sunday school difficulties when he saw them on the street during the week. Esus answered my prayers. So that's what happened.